Scientology maintains that an ex-member suing the church for fraud is an attack on religious freedom, and even some Christian churches spoke out in its support. The big names were there too.
It's worked for me for 10 years, and it's worked for thousands, millions of people, and I just feel that nothing can and should threaten that.
But courts found against the church. Last year, one ex-Scientologist was awarded $30 million damages. The church is appealing. This party in Los Angeles is to launch a $1 billion class action, that is, a collective lawsuit, against the Church of Scientology. The plaintiff's attorney is Lawrence Levy. Over 400 ex-Scientologists, some living in Britain, have combined to sue the church for restitution of their fees and to stop what they allege is church harassment. The lawsuit has a long way to go through the courts and may indeed fail, but it's an expression of these embittered ex-members' anger and resentment. The lawyer they've retained, Lawrence Levy, has won similar cases against other religions.
It's been displayed by the church. More lies, more subterfuge, more machinations that do everything except address the truth. What is the truth? If you joined Scientology right up until yesterday, you've been defrauded.
Mrs. Thea Greenberg is what Scientologists call a squirrel. She uses some of Hubbard's techniques for personal gain. So some Scientologists came to one of her meetings.
All of a sudden he came up with their finger up on me in the middle, and on one of my friends stayed here, and I said, "You homosexual faggot!" And some concentrated on him, and the other, "You old woman psycho." After they had left in the first time insulting us, I hear all of a sudden, while they were talking to us, cluck, cluck, cluck. I thought, what is that? And when they had left, we looked at the eggs all over, and my house was covered with eggs, the windows. And so they must have had about 30, 40 eggs to throw at the house. And a few months later, I had a visitor here staying in this room, and he comes up in my bedroom in the middle of the night and said, "For God's sake, come down immediately. There are thousands of maggots here." And they were thrown at this door, and they were all thrown against the door and all over, thousands of them. Oh, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
In 1967, Hubbard wrote his notorious order about church enemies. If you stay within the law, they are, he said, fair game. They may be deprived of property, injured by any means, tricked, sued, lied to, or destroyed. Last year, this official-looking wanted poster was widely distributed in Los Angeles, giving the names and home addresses of ex-members who had angered the church.
The posters existed in a context, and that context was years of harassment, dirty tricks, frame-ups of people, and we felt we were now on the enemies list. We were now fair game. And if they were willing to do this publicly, totally disgusting and outrageous activity, what were they doing to us that we didn't know about? And we went on a very long period of just extreme fear.
Litigation is no novelty for the Scientologists, who make habitual use of the courts. But the church says Lawrence Levy is a church-busting mercenary for representing its ex-members in the class action.
I'm not a church-busting mercenary. I think, if anything, I'm a religionist. I believe that any individual has the absolute right to believe whatever they want. What I take issue with is people who would utilize religion as a money-making venture and not as a religion. I'm not interested in their beliefs. I'm interested in their conduct.
It has defrauded its members. It has lied to them. Lies have been passed on by Hubbard about his background, and the church has condoned those and passed those on. The church has broken up families, forced parents apart, forced children and parents apart. It has also broken the priest-penitent confidentiality practice quite severely.
Do you feel you yourself were deceived by this church which you served for so long?
Oh, definitely. On several counts.
Every Scientologist is required to recruit new members. Find their ruin was Hubbard's advice. In other words, detect a personal problem that might be alleviated by a course of auditing. But sometimes recruitment is more indirect. Everywhere, Scientology reaches the public through its front organizations, some of them misleadingly named. Some are pressure groups campaigning on issues like mental health, which seems to obsess Scientologists. Others are controversial campaigns aimed at school children. And Scientology has others to help the unfortunate, like ex-offenders, and particularly drug users.
Narconon is a drug rehabilitation center. It's a front group for Scientology. It's designed to help people get off drugs, which it does successfully, but then it converts people from that into Scientology. They're taken off drugs. They're put onto a program to help them do better in life. The program is basically Scientology processing or training, and from there they are indoctrinated, and from there they're converted to a Scientologist.
And how many of those former drug addicts become Scientologists?
Anywhere from 50 to 75%.
Can you recall an incident which occurred when your mother looked younger?
One of the main grievances of the plaintiffs in the class action relates to auditing. The most intimate confessions are sometimes divulged in these sessions, and the auditor notes them down. This information is then kept in processing files known as pre-clear or PC folders, which are carefully stored. The use that has been made of the contents of these folders is now a matter of contention. Hubbard wrote in What is Scientology, the auditor treats all session reports as confidential. Item 22 of the auditor's code reads, I promise never to use the secrets of a pre-clear divulged in session for punishment or personal gain. What is the policy of the Church on the use of information imparted during auditing sessions?
It is to be kept completely confidential and sequestered.
Completely confidential?
Yes.
Is that policy rigorously observed?
Yes, it is.
Has it been?
Yes. Has it been rigorously observed? Absolutely.
But in the recent past, it was policy to cull people's files for damaging information. Hubbard's wife, Mary Sue, who was later imprisoned, wrote a Guardian order in 1969 to make full use of all files on the organisation to affect your major target. These include processing files. You were in the intelligence division of the Guardian's office of the Church of Scientology. Did you have access to people's personal confidential files?
Oh, certainly. Certainly.
And was use ever made of that information?
Every mission that I ever went on, I used it.
What did you do?
Well, when we'd first come into an organization, we would have the pretty clear folders of people that were involved in the organization that had maybe given the organization some trouble, pulled and culled for things that they may have done and were hiding. And that information will be brought to their attention in order to kind of bring them back into the fold, so to speak.
Did you use confidential information that the Church held about people?
Yes. For example, that was used to get the extortion money a lot of times.
Are you categorically denying that private information culled from PC folders has ever been disseminated to intimidate or blackmail ex-members of the Church of Scientology?
Absolutely, because that can be verified in every court of law in the world, and it's just as simple as that. So there will be allegations that people want $1 billion. I understand that they want $1 billion, but they'll have to come up with some kind of documentation. There is none. There is none. Nada, as they say in Spanish. Niente, as they say in Italian. There's nothing.
But one of the class action plaintiffs has some widely circulated internal church documents that, she says, were seized by the FBI and authenticated in court.
Here you have a file on a woman. The following data was gotten from this woman's folders. She had several self-induced abortions. She saw a psychiatrist for alcoholism problems. She has a drug history of Librium, Valium, Miltown's alcohol, LSD, opium, heroin, and many other things. That her son went to jail. And in another case here, a woman, it says here, her folders start in 1963. She masturbated regularly since she was 8 years old. She mentioned doing it once with coffee grounds and once had a puppy licker. When she lived in Greenwich Village, she claimed she screwed anything with pants.
Now, this information was supplied in confidence in auditing sessions.
You can believe it.
The Church would say that it has wound up the Guardian's office, it has changed a lot of the practices that went on in previous years, it has now cleaned up its act. Is the Church of Scientology today a different organization from the one you left?
It's worse. I know this because people come to me continuously and bring me the stories of the horrors